Hey, this is Lauren Janae, the corporate coach, and welcome back to my channel. Thank you for joining me again. Please be sure to like, share, and subscribe, and of course, turn on post notifications. So this week we are going to start with relationship management. This is the last component of emotional intelligence. I'm so excited to finally get to relationship management, and I'm going to start with a personal story. So I have 4 sisters. I'm the oldest of 4 sisters, and one of my sisters, I never really got along with her until we got older, and really until I learned about emotional intelligence. So me and her would always bump heads. But one interesting thing about different personalities is even though there's 4 of us, I have different relationships with each of them. I have to adapt and tailor myself for the different relationships that I want to have with my sister. So the sister that I was talking about that I didn't really get along with, me and her would verbally fight. We would always have these drag out, knockout fights until I really took the time to pay attention to what she needed from me. And in turn, she did the same thing. She was able to look to see what I needed from her. And then we were able to have a really great relationship. Think about those people in your life, especially from a work perspective. The first time that you met them, you were like, me and this person are not going to get along. But then the more that you get to know them, the more that you work with them, you really start to understand their personality. You realize that just because they're different does not make them bad people. And that's truly where emotional intelligence comes in. First, you become self-aware of yourself, your own emotions, your triggers. And then when you are building a relationship with people, even if they hit those triggers, you can truly look at those situations to say, okay, and that's where the self-management comes in. But you can truly look at those situations and say, did this person really mean to hit my trigger? And if so, why? But truly taking the time to look at what's going on around you and not lashing out emotionally. So this week, we're going to talk about 2 ways that we can build better relationships. The first is communication. And with communication and any type of relationship, it is very crucial that we learn how to communicate effectively. So I have this friend, and this person wants me to read their mind so bad. A lot of times when they are wanting me to do something, we may talk about it a little bit, but the communication isn't always there. But unless they communicate with me, I'll never know what they're really wanting me to do. The same thing goes for effectively communicating and expressing yourself. Communication is key in any relationship, but communication works 2 ways. Think about a time when you had a one-on-one with your boss and they asked you a question. And then instead of letting you answer that question, they started asking more questions and almost kind of answering their questions like they know what you're going to say. Think about how frustrating that can be. Think about how when you're sitting there waiting for your turn to talk, they just continue to keep talking. That's not 2-way communication. When we're talking about communication, we're talking about actively listening, actively communicating. There's actions that go with communication more than just listening. With active listening, we really take the time to listen for understanding instead of listening to respond. A lot of times we feel like the response is what's going to help move the conversation along, but that's not always what's needed. And especially if you're trying to build relationships with other people. And sometimes when we get into conversations and we start to see the other person shut down, especially as a leader, and we're talking to someone who reports to us and they start to shut down, it's our time to really use emotional intelligence to be able to see the cues, self-manage ourselves so that we're not thinking that they are defensive or that they're not wanting to communicate with us, and then taking the time to build that relationship with them, stopping what we're trying to say and really taking the time to actively listen to what they want to say. A lot of times when I'm in meetings with my subordinates, I ask a question and I purposely stop. I even have it in my notes sometimes. I say, so, hey, how are you doing today? Or, hey, do you know why you're in this meeting today? And then I stop so that I'm not over communicating about responses that I want to get from them. When you do that, you really start to build trust and you start to build camaraderie, because then the other person really sees that you want to know and you want to hear what they have to say. Another component of communication is not only active listening, but also actively engaging in the conversation. Think about a time when you were in a meeting and you were giving a really great idea to the team and no one really responded. You almost feel a little silly that you said anything. So, as leaders, we have to be sure that when people are engaging with us, we are engaging right back. So if Sally says, I really have an idea about a project that we could do that will be effective for the organization, instead of, even if you don't like it, instead of just saying, oh, okay, yeah, that sounds great, just ask them questions about it. And maybe it could turn into something that would be amazing for the organization. But that really means that you have to take the time to engage in the conversation. The last thing that I'll say about communication in terms of building better relationships is that when we are communicating or when we're thinking about communication, it's truly the building blocks in order to build strong relationships. Think about times when you're listening to somebody and all they're doing is talking and talking and talking and talking, and you're waiting for your turn. How does that make you feel? Sometimes we wish those people don't even ping us. We wish that those people wouldn't even call. And sometimes we refuse to answer the phone because we do not want to sit through a monologue for hours upon hours. The second component of building good relationships is to be receptive to feedback. Now, I know you may say, how does being receptive to feedback have anything to do with building relationships? But being receptive to feedback does have a lot when it comes to building better relationships. Have you ever dealt with someone that said, I'm very receptive to feedback, and then as soon as you start to give them feedback, they get really defensive, their demeanor changes, their physicality changes, and you know that you may have hit a landmine with them. So when we are talking about being receptive to feedback, it's really important that we are utilizing our emotional intelligence skills. So first, really important to pay attention to where the feedback is coming from and who the feedback is coming from. So we can always just say thank you when people give us feedback. We don't have to be defensive, and we also don't have to cut the person off. Just say thank you and keep on moving. The other piece about building relationships and being receptive to feedback is that if I am trying to build a relationship with you, I should be able to trust you with my thoughts and with my opinion. When getting feedback, be sure to turn on your self-management skills. Do your best to maintain your composure and always thank the person for their feedback. Because sometimes it takes a lot of courage to give someone criticism or to give them constructive feedback. And we don't want to be that person where anytime someone comes to us and decides to give us feedback, that we immediately turn defensive. Whether you decide to implement the feedback or not is up to you. But at the end of the day, if we're going to build better relationships, people have to know that they can trust us with their thoughts and with their opinions. If I know that I can trust you with my thoughts and with my opinions, I know that I can build a stronger and a better relationship with you. I remember at one time in my career, I had a colleague who would always fuss about people giving them criticism and giving them feedback, but would be able to let you know without a shadow of a doubt why it's important for people to be receptive of feedback. A lot of times it's not that people don't understand the importance of feedback, they just feel like it may not always be for them. Or they feel like when they are receiving the feedback that people are criticizing them and not trying to help them to be better. So with that colleague, whenever I would give them feedback or criticism, I would always wait and ask them if they were in the space to be receptive. Sometimes we don't even ask. We just say, hey, can I ping you real quick, or can I get on a call with you really fast? And we start going with like diarrhea of the mouth instead of asking people, because some people have to prepare to be receptive of feedback. Now, as leaders, we have to get to the place where we are emotional intelligent enough that regardless of the situation, we are able to be receptive of feedback, because that truly shows growth as a leader. Thank you so much for joining me for this video. We have finally come to the end of emotional intelligence. I've talked about self-awareness, self-management, social awareness, and the last one, which was relationship management. I hope that you have enjoyed this talk on emotional intelligence. Thank you so much for joining me again this week. Please be sure to like, share, and to subscribe. And until next time, have a great week.